This is the third part, the series about the Roman and the Byzantine emperors. I want to talk about Antoninus Pius, his successor Marcus Aurelius, his co-emperor Lucius Verus, and the usurper Aurelius Cassius. This speech is mainly, it concerns mainly Marcus Aurelius, but it includes the other three minor emperors as well. Now, Antoninus Pius became emperor in 138. He succeeded Hadrian. And Antoninus Pius, first of all, when he became emperor, he learned that a group of people were condemned to be killed by Hadrian. And what happened was that Antoninus Pius ordered the Senate to stop the execution. That's one of the reasons why he earned the cognomen Pius. And then, not long after that, the Senate, they wanted to punish, let's say, Hadrian by not proclaiming him divine, because he had executed 4 senators in the earlier part of his reign. And that was quite unjust, because these 4 senators, they tried to kill Hadrian, and he only did it in self-defense. And Antoninus Pius begged the Senate to deify Hadrian after his death. So for these 2 reasons, the pardoning of these people who were condemned by Hadrian and the deification of Hadrian, he earned the cognomen Pius, Antoninus Pius, and he was the founder of the Antonine dynasty also. Part of his will claimed, the main clause of his will claimed that when Hadrian died, Antoninus Pius would succeed him, but Antoninus Pius was obliged to adopt in his turn Marcus Aurelius as the senior emperor and Lucius Verus as the minor emperor, his co-emperor. So Antoninus Pius's reign was considered to be a peaceful one. But in fact, there were several wars. There were actually 7 campaigns during his 23-year reign, and we have little knowledge about these campaigns. Now, in 142, the Brigantes, a Celtic tribe somewhere in Britain, rebelled, and they were defeated. See, so we don't really know who the commander was, who the proconsul, the legate was who defeated them. We don't actually know about the battles that took place. We just know that he defeated them, and even the dates are quite vague too. In 144, the Moors, the Numidian, the Berber tribes rebelled. They were defeated by a Roman proconsul, and they were forced to flee to the Atlas Mountains. In 145, the Germans rebelled, and they were again defeated. In 157, perhaps, the Dacians rebelled. Now, the Dacians, they were recently conquered by Trajan, as we learned in a previous video. And they rebelled, and they were again defeated. So that's 4 campaigns we hardly know anything about. And sometime during his reign, the Egyptians rebelled, and they were defeated, again by an anonymous legate or proconsul. And the Alans rebelled. Actually, they didn't rebel, they made a raid, and they were repelled by the Roman forces. Again, we don't know who beat them or how they did it. The 7th and final campaign that took place in the reign of Antoninus Pius was the force of Scythians. They besieged the Greek colony Olbia, and a Roman force was sent to relieve the colony. And when the Roman troops arrived, the Scythians departed. The Scythian tribes, and there was hardly any fighting. Or if there was, it was restricted to a few skirmishes. So that's about it, as far as battles were concerned. It was a relatively peaceful reign, but there were at least 7 campaigns. Now, not everything was actually was rosy in his campaign. We see that in his rule. We see that Attilius Titianus and a certain Priscus, that they planned to overthrow and murder Antoninus Pius. Antoninus Pius was tipped off the conspirators were arrested and executed. We don't know when it happened, actually. And finally, we learn from the historian Gustav that Aurelius Cassius also planned to overthrow Antoninus Pius, but for some reason he was not prosecuted. Now, Aurelius Cassius would become a usurper in the year 175. He would rebel against his best friend Marcus Aurelius. He was a half-Greek, half-Jewish aristocrat who grew up the scale. He was one of the finest commanders of his time. So we see that even then he was trying to tip the balances and become an emperor. Antoninus Pius died in 161 AD after a 23-year reign. Now, the ironic thing about Antoninus Pius was that he has no history. Some historian quoted, and I quote back, that Antoninus Pius has no history because he was so good. Nothing wrong actually happened during his rule. He did nothing wrong. He killed no one. He did nothing worthy of talking about. So that's why the sources we have about him are so limited and few. So he killed no one. He didn't kill his relatives. He didn't actually debauch anyone. And he died in 161 after a 23-year reign, and he's considered one of the finest emperors of Rome. He built wonderful edifices, and there were many philosophers flourishing during his reign. Now, we go on to Marcus Aurelius. Now, in 161 AD, Marcus Aurelius succeeds Antoninus Pius along with Lucius Verus as his co-emperor. In 161 AD, Marcus and Lucius, they are appointed consuls. Now, why they were appointed consuls? That we must remember that these are not real consuls. I mean, these people were not elected. The Senate did not approve them. Everything was prearranged by Marcus himself, by Lucius Verus, and a few of his senators, his high-ranking senators. Now, they were appointed consul in the year 161 to actually prove that they were the new emperors, and they were co-emperors. Now, we see that happening when Nerva adopted Trajan. You see that the pair of them became consuls in 97, 98 AD. So that was a way to show to the people that these are the co-emperors and these are new emperors. Now, on the onset of Marcus's reign, tragedy struck the empire. It all happened in Armenia. You see, Armenia, as well as Assyria and Mesopotamia, and the smaller buffer states, they were buffer states between Parthia. Parthia was the only empire that was capable of hurting Rome. Apart from a few German or Scythian or Dacian tribes. You see, these barbaric tribes, they were not organized enough. They had the manpower, but they were not organized like the Parthians. So Parthia was the real threat. And Armenia was a battleground between Rome for centuries. Before that, and for centuries after the reign of Marcus Aurelius. So what happened was that the Parthians invaded Armenia, and the Romans decided to strike back. The commander, the Parthians were ruled by a capable Shah, who was called Vologases IV. Several coins of the Shah are preserved. Now, Severianus was the commander in Armenia at the time, and the Greek wise man or mysticist or priest with the name of Alexander of Avontikos, he prophesied that Severianus would defeat the Parthians. And Severianus took his word for real, and he invaded Armenia. And what happened was a disaster. The Roman troops were surrounded and massacred. And not long after that, the Parthians also defeated Atilius Cornelianus. Now, We don't really know what happened in Armenia, but what is probable is that the Parthians, they used the hit and run tactic, the one they used when they defeated Crassus at Haran in 53 BC. So they used the horse archers. Now the Parthians and the Scythian allies, they were quick. They struck with the arrow and then they fell back. They struck with the arrow and then they held back. The heavy armed Romans could not catch up with them. They were excellent horsemen also, and they used Saracens as well. So that's probably why they defeated the Romans twice. And remember, this is just when Marcus Aurelius and Lucius Verus are appointed emperors. So imagine becoming an emperor, and a few months after that, you suffered 2 disasters. Now in the following year, 162 AD, the Britons revolted. They were defeated by Julius Agricola, and Julius Agricola is probably related to the elder Julius Agricola, the writer and the son-in-law of Tacitus, who was betrayed and executed by Domitian. Now, in the same year, the German Hatti, they invaded parts of Roman Germania and Raetia, but they were defeated by Filius Victorianus. Now, in the following year, 163, the Romans counterattacked. They invaded Armenia once more, and this time they sent Statius Priscus, a capable commander. The Romans captured Artaxata by assault, the capital of Armenia, and soon after that, with hardly any resistance, Armenia fell to Rome once more. The Parthians quickly evacuated the province. Now in the following year, 164, the Romans invaded Assyria and Mesopotamia proper, just like Trajan did a few years earlier. The Romans under Aurelius Cassius, now we see Aurelius Cassius again, this Greek guy, this Greek aristocrat, they defeated the Parthians near the Ephatus River with the use of catapults, onagers and scorpions and other missiles. See, it was long range, so they hit the Parthians back with their own tactics. Now in the following year, 165, the Romans finally captured all of Mesopotamia and Assyria. Aurelius Cassius defeated the Parthians in a pitched battle somewhere in the province. The Romans captured and burnt Seleucia. Seleucia, at the Tigris River, was a Greek colony, and what happened was that Aurelius Cassius, he entered the city as an ally. You see, he was a Greek himself, most of the colonists were Greeks also, and he pretended to be their friends. But what happened was that he betrayed them, he treacherously attacked them, and he killed many of them, and they even sacked the temple of Apollo, which was considered to be blasphemy, sacrilege. Soon after that, the Romans captured Ctesiphon. Statius Priscus captured Dura Evropos, a city with a large Jewish community. The Romans also captured Babylon, and they seized many treasures. Now, because of the ancients believed that because the Romans they looted the temples and they captured gold, they were punished by a plague, and truly a plague, a serious plague broke out in 165. So even though the Parthians were humiliated and driven out of Mesopotamia, Syria, and Armenia proper, and the smaller kingdoms of Sorini, Gorduini, the Romans got a plague instead of a victory. And we also see that Lucius Verus, the co-emperor, he actually did nothing about the Parthians and the Armenians and their other allies. He spent most of his time partying, hunting, drinking, reading poetry at Antioch. He stayed back at Antioch, and it was Marcus Aurelius in Rome who directed affairs with his captains, Priscus, Aurelius Cassius, and the other commanders. And the people learned to despise Lucius Verus. The people soon realized that it was Marcus Aurelius who was the true leader. Now in the following year, the Romans were faced by large Germanic and Scythian tribes and Dacian tribes. There was a large coalition. Now the Longobards